Hello, my name is Franzi, and with the following presentation, I would like to introduce you how do entrepreneurial founding teams allocate task positions.
The article has been written by Dr. Jung, an assistant professor from the Imperial College in London, Professor Vissa, and Professor Pich, both from the INSEAD Business School, all of them having their research focus on teaching subject in the sphere of entrepreneurship. Since its publication in 2017 by the Academy of Management journal, the article was cited up to date 44 times. The journal has an impact factor of 7,571 and is ranked as a A+ journal. Its mission is to publish highly quality empirical research that not only supplements and extends managerial theory but also contributes to management practice. The article proceeds a multi-leveled empirical research. First, semi-structured interviews were conducted, which in relation to status characteristics theory generated hypotheses. Respective hypotheses were then tested and assessed in the subsequent studies 1 and 2. Structuring organizations usually happens via formalizing task positions, or in other words, via documentation and allocation. Therefore, a role constitutes a position category which individuals occupy, and thus a certain behavior is expected. So how do organizations construct positions? Hereby the article refers to two roads, internal and external construction. Internal construction, or in other words, the idiosyncratic view, bases upon an intergroup and context-dependent description, while the external construction, the institutional view, bases position upon normative environment and traditional positions for reasons of legitimacy. Yet as compared to already existing organizations, newly founded ventures lack managerial authority, have correlating skill sets, and operate in a highly uncertain environment which challenges the task allocation respectively. The article therefore bases its assessment on the status characteristics theory. Dependent on the cultural norms, individuals form performance expectations based on an individual's personal characteristics, both objective and subjective norms, and thus indicates to be influential for task allocation in group settings. Specific expertise cues are personal characteristics that indicate certain expertise, for instance work experience. Diffuse cues, on the other hand, indicate general ability. Especially diffuse cues originate from shared cultural norms and values and thus affect how general ability is judged. Personality traits and social categories are therefore references. Diffuse cues can be further described as ascribed status cues and social categories like gender, age, ethnicity, and achieved social categories as educational background and occupation. Bearing this in mind, semi-structured interviews were conducted, focusing on motivation and task allocation triggers and procedures in order to assess how cues influence the allocation process. 6 ventures, 4 European and 2 East Asian based, were assessed. As given teams are on majority groups of men having met each other at their workplace, diffuse cues both of ascribed and achieved nature are identifiable. As given by the data, especially the role of the CTO was correlated to previous tech experience. The analysis consequently indicated 4 distinct patterns. First, division of labor and task allocations happens for both reasons of internal coordination and external legitimacy. Second, individual attributes during the allocation process, both diffuse and specific status cues, indicated to be a measurement method and was dependent on cultural norms. Third, allocation also happens based on an overlap of specific positions, but also on missing indicators. Fourth, allocation based on matching positions, based on specific and diffuse cues likewise. Based on these findings, the authors constructed in relation to the status characteristics theory hypotheses to be tested in the subsequent steps. The first study was a simulation game conducted during a graded course of MBA students. Respective participants had on average 5.6 years work experience, were about 30 years old, and on majority male. Simulating a durable good market in a fictional economy, the teams had to make decisions in order to make their firm grow and operate successfully. Prior the simulation, the participants had to decide how to organize their teams based on specified hierarchical ranked orders of CEO, CFO, CMO, COO, and idiosyncratic positions. Decisions hereby based upon prior work experiences and backgrounds and interests. Assessments indicate that in comparison to respective hypotheses, that first, specific cues matter especially for roles of CFO and CMO, yet not significantly for the CEO. Diffuse cues are confirmed. Both ascribed and achieved diffuse cues indicate significance in allocation processes. A moderate support is identified in weighting specific in comparison to diffuse cues. Interaction effects between diffuse cues and team diversity is also partially supported. Performance consequences of fits between position and diffuse cues of position occupants are confirmed. A fit between position and diffuse cues indicate a strong support. A typical occupant increases performance of benches. High diffuse cues individuals receive furthermore a greater share from the equity. For reasons of internal validity, study 2, an experiment was performed. With the subsequent study, the authors aimed at testing allocation likability by manipulating male-female and expertise. An optional study for MBA and Master of Science students of European business schools were asked to allocate the position of the CEO and CMO. The participants' work experience hereby was on average 3.5 years. 25% had prior entrepreneurial work experience and 41% were female. Firstly, founder 1 was introduced, which then had to be allocated to a position. The same procedure happened to be for the second founder, yet merely for reasons of competition, as the first founder assessment was focused upon. By manipulating diffuse cues, as for instance by typical names as Julia and Robert, and specific cues, the manipulation proceeded during the assessment. The study was able to illustrate that there is a significant effect of specific cues for CEOs with entrepreneurship experience and CMO experience conversely. Furthermore, significant gender effects are identified as male CEOs outweighed female CMOs. Especially male CEOs are allocated when they have prior experience fits. Thus, study 2 confirms the conceptual model of position allocation. Summarizing, the article contributes, based on an empirical analysis, a vertical as well as horizontal dimension to task allocation procedures, which as a consequence potentially indicate success of ventures. Most literature beforehand has focused the horizontal dimension, yet as introduced, vertical diffuse cues indicate effects of venture performance as well. So the specific status cues as expertise indicate particular abilities and thus the allocation prediction. Addressing the role of diffuse cues, superior ability is expected and therefore a higher ranked position indicates general ability. Concurrent specific and diffuse cues are partially confirmed too. Team skill set homogeneity is partially supported as well, wherefore diffuse cues indicate a matter in this case. Significance of occupant task fit indicates a superior value creation. Similarly, higher shares are expected if diffuse cues confirm the common expectations.
So, by cleverly leveraging the possibility to analyze real-time data actually via the simulation game, the authors were able to generate an unbiased view on the actual group processing, like on the internal processing of task allocation. This wouldn't have been happened if they would have conducted or further continued or just based their research on the semi-structured interviews. Therefore, the combination of the mixed methods they approached on this problem was pretty interesting and even enabled a more holistic view on the actual problem. Especially study 2 is thereby pretty interesting as diffuse cues as we have identified during the processes or during the allocation process, seems to matter very much for the actual performance evaluation by the not only team members but also by the external environment. Therefore, looking at the seed and the landscape we generate here is that depending on whom you actually set as your CEO, potentially already affects how you put your business as such in the subsequent years or ongoing procedures, which therefore indicates an interesting potential to further be addressed, especially given the current discussion on a quota in top management. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and looking for your questions. Bye.